He's very focused on helping customers realize success with their initiatives across many of the things that we're trying to solve in this room. But one thing in particular he's here to talk about today is something that's very important to, I think, all of us, the market, and Microsoft in general. And that's mobile, and how their mobile strategy can help you guys all achieve your goals. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ian on up to the stage, and you can take it away, sir. Thanks for coming again. We appreciate it.
Am I on? Number 3. All right. You're a little too tall to shake his hand coming up the stairs. That was scary. But hey, good morning. Thank you very much for participating and having me. I'd like to thank Sitrion for inviting us and having me speak this morning. As was shared, really what I'll talk to you guys about today is I found this the title even interesting around enterprise mobile and bring your own device. But I'll talk about Microsoft's mobile strategy. But to do that, I really thought it was important to kind of start with the higher level themes that are hitting all of us. And the way I would just describe it is and I'm sure everyone in the room knows in your own ways, in your own businesses, that from a technology perspective, the industry and everyone is going through a pretty massive transformation. And there's change going on everywhere. And it's an exciting time to be in technology, but it's also a time where you got to change or get out of the way. And there's a couple of 4 trends that the industry in general has sort of galvanized around, with mobile being one of them that we'll talk more about today. Enterprise social, which Sitrion has obviously played a key role in. Big data and cloud. And so I'm actually going to talk a bit about how these weave together in our strategy at Microsoft. But what's happening with this is it's not just the next wave of technology. It's not just the same as going from mainframe to client server, for those of you that remember that time. This is really disrupting and changing the worlds of our customers, not just in how you interact with your customers, but also about how you attract and retain talent and employees. It's opening doors for competition to pop up from every angle, and it's changing the way that you deliver products and services. Now what we're seeing is, so while the industry is going through this transformation and it's so impactful, we're actually seeing that all of our customers are going through the transformation as well. And that technology and IT is as strategic to the business as it's ever been. What's interesting, though, is that IT as a function is changing, and it's changing rapidly. The IT organization that delivered basically a service provider to the organization is now transferring more to being a system integrator. And how do you pull pieces together and deliver services? And we'll talk a lot about that around mobile. But you can see, 70% of CIOs will embrace a cloud-first strategy. It doesn't mean cloud only. It doesn't mean everything's got to move to the cloud. We'll talk a bit about Microsoft's view on the cloud relative to it being a business-driven decision, not a technology-driven decision. But fundamentally, this transformation across mobile, cloud, analytics, and social is impacting everyone, and it's changing, again, at the industry level and at your level, at the customer level, from a Microsoft perspective. But that also means that, as we look at this, that it's not just about the fact that you have to change because all the technology is changing. There's real value and results that are coming out of this transformation. And so, one of the things that we're seeing are the trends that are starting to hit our customers around the speed to market, their ability to be agile, and their ability to be responsive. Really interesting changes that are occurring, like, the organizational structure of hierarchies really switching to one that's more network-driven. And if you look at employees today, it's more about their network than it is about their organization or hierarchy. If you look at the thought of treating customers as customers and partners as partners, it's transitioning more to communities, and how do you look at bringing communities together and enabling that with technology. And so the core message for me on this front end is that, yes, the transformation's occurring, and yes, it's rapid, and yes, our customers and all of you are going through it, but when you actually get to the other side of this, there's real value and there's real opportunity, and that's why it's happening. It's not just happening because technology's gotten cooler or different or changed. Now, with all of that said, the reality is that Microsoft is going through a massive transformation. There's probably 3 areas I could talk about. The one that's most public is we have a new CEO. And that change for us is something, I'll tell you, I mean, as an employee, is exciting to see kind of that shift in the announcements that we've made just in the last few months as Satya has taken on. And I'll talk a bit about our strategy in mobile, and hopefully, some of you that may think that Microsoft's all about Microsoft will walk away realizing that this transformation of embracing devices and services means that we all have to be open to all kinds of different players in the market, and Microsoft is that way as well. So one way to look at our transformation is, we have a change in CEO. The other way is to look at our investments. If you actually look at the areas on this slide, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but fundamentally, you can take the major investments Microsoft is making and put them right into the buckets of mobile, social, data, and cloud. And there's amazing things that happen at Microsoft. I mean, a lot of times people get caught up in, are we the desktop company or the office company? But if you look at things like Yammer, if you look at things like Skype, Xbox, etc., you can see the investments that we're making across the portfolio. Now, if all we did was change our CEO and invest differently, we wouldn't really be changing. And so what's really changing at Microsoft is our strategy, and that's sort of the third area of change that I was going to talk about. If you listen to Satya, he'll talk about being cloud first, mobile first. If you actually look at some of the other press views, we talk about being a devices and services company. Well, what does that mean? Well, historically, Microsoft has been a software company. And software is still at the heart of all of this, but our transition to a devices and services company is really pretty simple, and it's actually going to be how I lead into our mobile discussion today. And I'll just put it to you right now at a high end. Devices is really about the concept that from a technology perspective, end users have a way to interface with technology. So fundamentally, we leverage technology to enable our lives to get value, but we need an interface. There's some way that we connect with technology. That is what devices means in a devices and services strategy. And so devices can be the phone, it can be the tablet, it can be a 70-inch screen. A device could be a screen that size if you can interact with it and it's touch-enabled, etc. A device could also be your car. A device could be a refrigerator. So if you think about it in that term, it's a broad description, but essentially Microsoft is saying you got to have an interface, and the interface side we've kind of coined the term is a device. And then on the back end of that, really what the end user wants on that interface is an experience. It's to get done whatever it is they want to get done at that time, or a service. And so that's where the services side of this comes in. And we'll talk a bit about Microsoft's strategy around services as we get into the mobile discussion, so you can see where it's about providing first-party services, but it's also about enabling all kinds of second and third-party services to be lit up in those interfaces. So if I really net it out, the different conversation that I'm having with customers in our Southeast geography, our enterprise customers, is it's much more about what is it that whoever it is that we're talking about, if it's an employee or one of your consumers, what is it that they need to get done, and how do they, what do they need to get it done? Because then we can have a discussion around what kind of device or interface that they would need, and then we can have a discussion around what services would it take for them to get that to happen. What's interesting to me is it's actually simplified our conversation. Even though you might talk about the back end being still a lot of different pieces, the discussion around really this devices and services world is a pretty straightforward discussion. And so that's the transformation that Microsoft is going through. So let me talk now about mobile. And I'll start off and just say, mobile is not about a phone. It is. I mean, we all think probably that's where our mobile experience started. But mobile's really about any device and any person, and really, in the future vision of mobile is really that I could pick up any device and actually have access to whatever it is I want to have access to, and be able to get done whatever it is that I need to get done. And so, it is a discussion around transcending time, place, context, and device. It also is a discussion around the fact that it requires blurring of the lines between personal and business, or personal and work. So if you take a step back and you say, today, and we'll talk quite a bit about this because that actually requires a secure and managed environment. because you can blur the lines of personal and work, and you can actually create a lot of problems for your work and your business. So, but at the end of the day, this technology world really is requiring us on any device, even the device your employee may provide you, blurring the lines between personal and work, and so we'll talk about that. And then the third real area of this is it requires a cloud. And the reason it requires the cloud is really about, it's not just the technology side of it, but it's the ability of the anytime, anywhere access to information, data, and capabilities. And we'll talk a bit about Microsoft's approach in cloud as well. So if I just tee up mobile as a discussion point, mobile is for real. It's happening. Let me give you some context. And this will actually help in our mobile discussion. If you take a step back and think about the PC world and what shifted. So Microsoft had at one point, I think everyone knows, I think I can say this without going back to court, about a 90% market share in the operating system of the PC world. Today, if you look at devices, so if you go across phones and tablets and everything else, we're about 20%, maybe 19% share. So the explosion of mobile is huge. It's impacted Microsoft. Now, I will say, our revenue and our stock price are what they are at 20% share. I actually am pleased with this development because you can't double 90% share, but you sure as hell can double 20% share. So there's opportunity in this for Microsoft, clearly. But the discussion point really is that it's just exploded. If you look at, a survey was just done, 95% of employees have a device of some sort that they bring to work, that they do work on. We still have customers we meet with that think that can't be possible in their enterprise, and it is. That if you don't think it's happening, it is, and if you're embracing it, you're probably farther ahead than those who haven't. It's also very interesting that the mix of what employees provide as devices and what consumers bring to work, this bring your own device, is a real transformation. In the United States, I think there was a survey done where around 350 million workers in the workforce use devices. About 200 million of those are the bring your own device type, where they're bringing them into the employee's space. So we're seeing this explosion, and so I'm just reaffirming that here with the fact that this isn't just a fad, it is for real. So with Microsoft, there's really five prongs to our mobile strategy. The first is that we believe in device choice, and that choice is the differentiator. And I'll talk about that. And with choice, you have to have security and management, so I'll put those together in a conversation. The second is around the fact that we want to deliver first-party experiences to and I'll talk about Microsoft's strategy around delivering services to devices and to mobile. The third is that we want to enable and support you to provide services to mobile devices. We call that second party. It's the best way for me to describe it, so I keep it simple for everybody. So I'll say second party. And we also want to provide ISVs and other partners the ability to bring their services to mobile devices, so I would call that third party. So think of it as device choice as number one, first party experiences as number two, and then number three is the second party, third party services enablement that we want to provide. The fourth pillar for us is really around the fact that we have a ton of consumer capabilities at Microsoft and assets, so think of Bing, Xbox, etc. So we talk to customers a lot about how we can help them leverage mobile to their consumer and the services that we bring to bear to help them do that. And then finally, the fifth pillar, which maybe is more across the bottom, is that we're leveraging cloud to enable all of this. And so I'll talk about that. So let me just start on the first one, which is device choice. So device choice is really, it's interesting at Microsoft, it really has two primary pivots. The first is around the fact that we want to have an operating environment, operating system in Windows 8 that provides you the opportunity to choose the devices you need. So if you think about our strategy and how it's differentiated in the marketplace, everything from a 70-inch device down to a 7-inch device is going to run Windows 8.1. You can write one application and run it across all of those devices, have a consistent experience, look, feel, etc. If you compare that to, today Apple has iOS, but they have Mac. You have Google with Android and Chrome. We think you're going to see convergence on their end as well, but today we're differentiated in that space. And what that means is if you actually go to a Best Buy today and you look at the Android devices, the Apple devices, and the Microsoft devices, there's more choice on Microsoft. Now that's part of our strategy. I'm not saying that everyone's buying all Microsoft devices. I'm just saying that we believe ultimately that choice is going to be the differentiator, and that fundamentally people are going to choose the device that's right for whatever it is they're trying to get done at that time. We have a lot of customers we're working with. I'll just use one. A large retailer in our business gave iPhone 4s to all of their store associates to do the scanning and barcodes, the handheld device they'd have in the aisle. Well, they've got two major issues. They break all the time because they're not ruggedized, and they're stolen all the time because people want their iPhone, they want the iPhone 4 they see the person carrying around. We're working with them on a ruggedized device that would be retail specific, and there's huge value in that for them as a customer. And it probably won't get stolen as much because I don't want to carry this ruggedized device around like I might an iPhone. And so you take a step back and you realize that this device choice and opportunity is important. The other thing I'll just use as an example, the New York Times did some research on how their digital media is consumed. And what they found was the same digital content was consumed on 3 different device types during the day. In the morning, it was really all about the phone. During the day, it was PC, and in the evening, it was on the tablets. And what's interesting, I actually thought about that and thought, in the morning, I usually do check the news out on my phone. And when I'm at work, I'll bring up something in the middle of the day and look at it. And then you're at home and, you're just hanging out, maybe watch TV, you'll be on a tablet. It makes sense. But the reality is that means that one device is not going to win. There's not a device that someone's going to come out with that's going to take all the share of devices. In fact, if you were to think about it, Apple was the first to kind of do that with the iPad, and that has quickly eroded with Android because of this concept of choice. And so think of that as pillar one for Microsoft on choice, is we want an operating system that provides the opportunity for you to have the choice of type of device that you want. Now, we recognize that we're going to have to build highly compelling devices. We have to earn the business. There's no expectation you're going to use Windows, but we're in that market, and we're going to find a way to earn your business and your employees and employers' business. The other prong, though, is that we also that means we have to embrace other devices. So if you take a step back and think about device choice, we also have to embrace Android and iOS devices in our strategy. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about the first-party services that we provide, but let me just give one example of that now on systems management and security. The reality is if your CEO carries an iPad and they lose it on the plane, and on that iPad is highly sensitive data, that's bad for business. And you can be as cool as you want to be with any device, but there's still a real need around security and management around devices. And it's probably the most painful part of this whole evolution that we're seeing around mobile right now is that issue. Because you've got business users and consumers that would just want to use whatever device they want, and you've got IT organizations and companies saying, hey, time out, there's a real issue and risk with this, so how do we address it? So at Microsoft, with our cloud-based services around Intune and our systems management products, and I won't go all into Microsoft products today, but we are embracing the manageability of iOS, Android, and Windows devices. So when we go meet with customers, we don't just talk about, hey, use all Windows devices. We also talk about the fact that says if you're using iOS, if you're using Android devices, let us help you manage that. Let us help you wipe that device if that employee resigns so that all the business data is taken off. And some examples of that are we've moved Active Directory services to the cloud, so you can now do user authentication and a ton of other features. And again, I don't want to go into the details, but that is part of our strategy. So if you think about device choice, Microsoft strategy is twofold. One, it's to have an operating system that provides choice in the market, and we want to win as many devices as we can, make no mistake. But then we also want to provide, because we recognize now the world will not have a 90% market share leader ever again. But maybe ever is a strong word. I don't see it. So we have to embrace and support, because if we just stayed with the Windows-only strategy, we would fade quickly. So that's on the security and management and the sort of the device choice side. If we take a step now and talk about these first-party services, so this one, we always like to talk about productivity. And that is, I mean, in fairness, if you take a step back and say, what is the world-class first-party service that Microsoft provides to our customers today in a mobile world? It is productivity. It is what we call Office 365. It's not Office. It's not just about Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. It's about how people do work. It's about instant messaging, it's about communications, it's about Skype and link integration and all sorts of other things that allow for this collaborative and social workspace. In fact, it's about partners like Sitrion that provide additional value on top of our stack that really allow customers, like around SAP usage and adoption, that really allow customers to embrace that. So on the first-party services side, you can expect Microsoft to continue to deliver a set of first-party Microsoft-developed services to your mobile devices. And if you look at this concept of it not being just about Windows, you'll see we recently announced Office for iPad and iOS. We also have all of our Office capabilities available through HTML5 through browser. So on any device, you can access email, you can access documents, you can collaborate and do all of those other things. Again, it's not just about old school Office and these products bundled together. It's really about how you do work moving forward. And so you'll see us have a strategy around that. As I said, though, our first-party services are not just Office 365. We have, again, around communications, Link, which is voice and presence at the enterprise level, now integrated with Skype, which is at the consumer level. At a line of business side, our Dynamics CRM and ERP assets are in the cloud and are available as services. So you'll see us continue to deliver in our devices and services strategy a set of services that Microsoft delivers to market. On the sort of on that same theme, but now talking about how if it was just Microsoft services, we'd have we'd have some high value niches for you, but it'd be limited in total. Really where the value unlocks is when we now enable you to provide and create services to serve to your end users. And that's really where this concept of Azure and the cloud for us are unlocked. And it allows us to provide an environment for you to create line of business applications yourself, or to purchase third-party ISV-based independent software vendor. I always use Microsoft language, so I just make sure everybody follows me. But applications to provide as services. And this is really where, honestly, where we see our IT organizations at our enterprise customers transforming into more of a system integrator. Because what they're really deciding is which services are they going to build and deliver themselves, and then on what devices do they want to support that across their enterprise? And then which services are they going to go acquire from a Microsoft or another third-party vendor? And so, we look at that as an enabler to provide you the ability to deliver those applications. And I would say Sitrion One, which you guys talked about here this week, is a great example of quickly creating line of business applications and value right down to your end users. So clearly right aligned in our partnership with Sitrion and the value that we talk about in this market. So again, that's the strategy is we'll have a set of our own services, which, by the way, will and do run off of our Azure cloud. And then we'll enable our cloud to provide the platform for you to create applications to deliver. And then we'll also have a number of vendors. We just announced recently SAP on Azure. So we'll run, SAP is an extreme example, but we can run SAP from Azure as well, so that service is always available and accessible, and as we talk about in this mobile strategy. Now, Microsoft also has a set of consumer assets. So we have Bing, we have an advertising business. Google is known for their search and advertising, but don't count out Microsoft. We're about 30% share on search, so we are a player. In fact, I highly encourage you to try Bing out if you're a Google user. And I'm not telling you, you go try it. If you like it, great. If you don't, go back to Google, but give it a try. You'll see We're doing some really cool things around search and contextual search, where you make a search and what comes back isn't just a bunch of blue links, but it's a bunch of information contextual to what you're trying to get done. You think about weaving that into mobile applications, and you start to see we bring additional value to the party when we work with our customers around how they can go after their customer base. We've done some very creative things around Xbox and our gaming side. We now have, with Xbox and all of the content, one interesting thing about Xbox is more people are using it to watch media today than they are to play games. And there are more people on Xbox Live as a service at 8 o'clock at night than are watching the #1 rated television show normally, unless it's like The Voice or one of the, there's a couple shows that, everybody watches. But if you just take an average Wednesday night, there's more people that are in an Xbox Live environment than are watching the #1 rated show that evening. And so that's just an example of where we're also bringing our assets to bear, because mobile isn't just about enabling your workforce. Clearly, there's a large part of it that's about reaching your consumer base, and we can help with that as well. And so when we sit down with customers and we talk about a mobile strategy, we talk about that as well. And then the final piece is this concept of cloud, and really enabling it all with cloud. The one thing I'll just share with Microsoft's strategy on cloud as it relates to mobile or anything is that we are a huge believer in what we would call hybrid cloud, which means there are providers out there that are born in the cloud and cloud only, which basically says if you want to use their service, you have to do it from the cloud. Microsoft believes that you will continue to have at companies, a company like MasterCard, or I've heard a couple other names in here, you guys will continue to have technology you run from on-premise, from your own facilities. You call it your own private cloud, but there's security, there's compliance reasons, there may be a reason that you're better at delivering it than you can get a cloud provider to deliver it. So we believe that there's on-premise or private cloud delivery that will continue to happen. We believe in public cloud clearly, as we've talked about with our assets around Azure and helping you develop applications for mobile. But it's actually the ability to do it wherever you need to, which is this hybrid cloud, whether it's on-premise or in the public cloud, that is our strategy. And so all the things that I've talked about relative to creating applications, relative to our mobile strategy in the cloud, are really available to you not just in our public cloud. It's a hybrid model. And we think, again, that is a differentiator. So I think if I just stop for a second and say, those five areas again, and just to summarize, device choice, but with security and management is clearly a Microsoft strategy, and that doesn't mean the choice has to be Microsoft, which is, I think if you have been around us long enough, you can see we are transforming. That's good for us. First-party applications, supporting of second and third-party applications and services, the ability to bring in our consumer assets, and then supporting all of that with this hybrid cloud capability, which means you can run it on your site or in our site, what makes most sense for you. And so that's really our mobile strategy. Now you might take a step back and go, I thought you were going to talk about phones and tablets and everything else, and I'll just say, really that first line item around device choice is that strategy. We will make, just like I talked about with first-party and second-party services, we're going to have a set of first-party devices. So Surface, the Surface Pro, which you guys are giving away one today, which I use the Surface Pro 2, and I love it. Nokia, the acquisition of Nokia, so we'll have phones in market that are Microsoft delivered. But we are not going away at all from our OEM partners around the ability for HPs and Dells and Samsungs and others to deliver great devices. And so if you were to ask, what our strategy is there, the market will really drive as much of what the OEMs do with us, and so we have to have a very compelling offering in market. But we want all the phone choice we can get you. We want all the device choice we can get you across all of the different partners and Microsoft can deliver. And I'll sort of net it out this way. I do carry a target in my business on devices, but it's not Surface. It's any device. And so, the folks at Microsoft engaging with you as customers we're not trying to get everyone to go Surface. We're not trying to get everyone to use Microsoft-made devices. Our strategy really is to continue to be the provider of the choice because we think that's the winning hand, and Microsoft will make a set of devices. You can think of them as sort of, we want to set the bar. There's some areas, I think we have an announcement coming up in a couple weeks around Surface, and what I will just share is you can see us taking things like inking, so writing, and really trying to differentiate ourselves with the types of interfaces you have with devices, because today, if you have an iPad and you want to take handwritten notes, it's doesn't really work. But if you want to do that on a Surface, it actually works really well. But again, you'd have to want to do that, and that's why choice is so important. And so, that's really the mobile strategy. I wanted to just give you a couple of examples from customers. So, Delta Airlines has 2 and a third on the way ways that they're leveraging mobile with Microsoft. The first one they decided to do was the in-cabin experience. So the stewardesses and all of the folks that serve you on the planes now carry Windows phones, and they use the Windows phone to transact any of the things that you do on the flight. So whether that's buying a drink, food, any of the things that you can do, they use the phone for that. And so that was really our first foray into Delta. And you could say, well, why would they pick a Windows phone? And there actually were reasons relative to the usability, the live tile technology that we have, and the ability for them to interface and leverage. And so it wasn't just who had the cheapest phone or who had the form factor. It was a discussion around really the whole thing and the applications that could be built in there, and the security and management around the fact that they're swiping your credit card while you're doing transactions in the air. That has to be very secure. And so they took that very seriously, and that was actually one of the key differentiators for us with Delta. They then looked at the cockpit, and so Delta has recently announced that all of their pilots will be carrying Surface devices to replace the bag that they used to carry with them that was all the paperwork in the plane. There's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of regulations that have to be met. There's form factor. It's funny with us, one of the biggest differentiators, because they looked at everybody, they looked at iPad and Android, one of the biggest differentiators is we have the ability to run apps side by side on the Surface, and they actually need that because they have to have the maps and the weather and different pieces brought together. The other interesting thing was, and you learn this when you're in a mobile world, and I'll share it openly. I don't even know if there were folks from Microsoft that'd get in trouble, but not all the pilots were super thrilled they picked Surface at first, because in the market that we're in today, everybody thinks of their iPad first. They don't think of their Surface first. And so the other thing we've learned about mobile is that you do have to understand what's happening in the marketplace, and we've had to go work with a lot of the pilots, but once they actually get their hands on it and they experience it and they use it, the feedback has been tremendous. But it's a learning for us as well. As I think in the past, a lot of times you do a deal with a customer and they'd pick your technology and you'd kind of move on. And we're finding in this devices and services world, you spend a lot more time with the end users because they have to really truly adopt and leverage the technology. The third area that they're looking at right now is maintenance. And of course, that's going to be a more ruggedized device. But in each of those areas, we've worked with Delta to really mobile enable their workforce. And don't underestimate the power of moving that bag that they carry to a tablet device. The productivity gains for them and the employee sat gains are huge. And so it's actually one where Richard Anderson, the CEO of Delta, we've done a number of different events with him. He's personally behind this because they see the impact it can have for their business. It also, interestingly enough, saves like millions of dollars worth of gasoline a year because of the weight that they don't carry with them anymore, which I find interesting. On Wells Fargo, they came at looking at how do they change their branch experience. So today, I don't know if you know, you walk into a Wells Fargo branch, about 70% of the space in the branch is not customer facing. And if you ever walk in, you'll see a whole bunch of its offices and stuff back behind it. And the other thing was everyone stands behind some sort of a desk or something. So you kind of have to, as a consumer, you got to decide if you're going to walk up and talk to them. And so we did some work with Wells on their branch of the future, and they've actually created a branch model with us where they've narrowed it down to about 10% of the space. So they've freed up in their branch. First, essentially what they did is they shrunk the size of the branch by about 50%. they cut down the amount of that that's left over of back-end space to about 10%, and it's almost all customer-facing. And that saves them significant money in just in space cost. But then they also enabled and empowered their employees with tablets, and their employees now are approaching consumers, and not like grabbing them out of the hall of the mall or anything, but they are able now to have a more proactive engagement with their bankers, their consumers. And so, and that's just one example. It's interesting, we just opened, this is one of those things where I would tell you, this world we're in of the mega trends and what it's doing to our customers, every single one of my customers is going, I call it the X of the future. In banking, it's what's my branch of the future look like? We're just going through the same work with SunTrust, and SunTrust is taking some of our larger devices, so I don't know if you'd call it mobile because you're not going to carry around a 70-inch screen, but they're putting these large 80, 70-inch touchscreens in the entrance to their facilities for people to enact and engage technology that way. And so again, but it's all using all the same mobile technologies. It's just in that case it's fixed, but it's the apps and everything else you'd expect. It's leveraging cloud, analytics and big data and social, as we talked about. So a lot of work going on there. There's another one I had in here, which was just LexisNexis. They actually have, it was basically case and client information application. Bottom line is, because it's a legal application, the rigor around security, management, and data is huge. And so we work very closely with them, both on the device side as well as they developed this application in Azure, and they're now delivering the service through Azure. One other example of that I'll just use is Kelley Blue Book. So Kelley Blue Book, you go to see the value of your used car. Well, when Cash for Clunkers came out, which was a few years ago now, it shut them down because everybody wanted to know the value of their car. And so they actually moved their mission-critical customer-facing app to Azure. And one of the advantages there of cloud is that it basically allows you to have the elasticity and pay for what you're using and then bring it back. And so, any of these examples of the mobile side application where you put it into the cloud environment, those are the kind of advantages that you could see. So I did just want to kind of reiterate and thank Sitrion and their partnership for this event, and then Sitrion One, which is a very powerful tool to quickly and simply create mobile applications. We've seen a number of our customers partnered and leveraging Sitrion for this. Just because essentially what happens is, it's very interesting, we've seen this all over the place. The CEO walks in with their iPad and they're like, I want this information. And the IT departments are like, well, how am I going to get them that information on that type of a device, et cetera? And really partnering with partners of ours like Sitrion and Microsoft from a mobile and devices strategy has enabled us to go do that in a secure and managed way, which is really important, as we've talked about. I think this is my, my wrap-up slide. I won't, look, the bottom line for us is, as the world is changing, as Microsoft's going through this transformation, I've essentially shared with you what our strategy is. Devices around choice and manageability, and really around services and the fact that we want to deliver services but enable the world around us to deliver services. And that's it. So I appreciate everybody's time, and thank you. I'm open if there is any Q&A or anything. I don't know what you guys were planning there, but that's what I had to talk about today. So thank you very much.